First off, it was way cool just because I got to ride in a plane during my mission. I didn't think I was going to do that until I went home. But we flew from Guayaquil to Quito, which only took about a half hour tops. It was a really short flight, but on bus it's like 10 to 12 hours, so definitely saved some time there. And it was funny because we actually missed the flight. That was my fault, so we had to take the next one. But when we got there, there was some church employees there, and we got in their car and we kind of drove around Quito and stopped by one of their houses. And Quito's a very interesting city because the streets are very narrow. The traffic's even worse than Guayaquil, just because the streets are so tiny, because it's in a kind of elongated small valley is where the city is situated. But we drove, then we started driving towards the border with Colombia, and the country up there is just some of the most beautiful, it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. It's kind of rolling hills, and you'll see like flower plantations in the distance, and or black and white cows, and then there's beautiful jagged green mountains, and every now and then there's a really giant snow-covered volcano, and it's just some of the most picturesque country I've ever seen. The entire Sierra, the whole mountains, the climate there is beautiful. It's the best way to describe it probably is permanent autumn. So it's kind of brisk and crisp, but it's not really, it never really gets quite cold. So we drove all the way up to a town called Tulcan, which sits right on the border, and we actually got to stay in a very nice hotel. I was surprised. It was owned by somebody, and so I thought it was going to be kind of dumpy, just because that's kind of like your experience with things like that. But it was actually very nice and been remodeled, and it had carpet, which was a really big deal because there's not very much carpet in Ecuador, especially on the coast, because it tends to get moldy and dirty and things like that. So it's just tile usually. But this had a nice plush carpet, and I laid on that for a while. The bed was super comfortable and had a giant comfortable comforter and pillows. It's actually so comfortable that I didn't sleep very well just because I wasn't used to it. And the bathroom, it was obvious it had been just redone because it was spotless white, and it had hot water, and that was a big deal. It was perfect. I could control it just how I wanted. I finished showering, and then I was like, no, I'm gonna keep showering. I think I was in there for about an hour. So that was way nice. And then we kept driving, and we went to Colombia. We got to the border crossing, and just because we needed to, we stamped his passport and things, but actually you can just drive right across. There's some soldiers on each side, but mostly traffic just goes right across the border, and they don't stop anything. Like, I think they do random checks every now and then, but not very often. And then we got to Ipiales in Colombia, which is a town that apparently is known for its lingerie. And nobody told us that. So we got to the town, and it was pretty picturesque, kind of colonial looking almost. It had some old churches and stuff. And then it had all these Victoria's Secret type posters, and so we're just kind of like, wow, this is amazing, and oh my goodness, Elder, look down. So we weren't, it was kind of interesting because of that. And we bought some stuff that's made from cocoa, not cocoa beans, like coca, sorry, it was made from coca, which is like what they make cocaine out of. So I got some cool pictures of that. It was just, the member bought some tins of it. Apparently you rub it on yourself and it helps with joint pain, but it's just kind of cool. It's like, hey, look at me, I've got cocaine. So that was a fun experience. And on the way back in, we got stopped by a narcotics team on the Ecuador side. They pulled over the car and they asked us, like, hey, who are you guys, and what's in these suitcases that you got right here? Like, what are you guys doing? And I just said, we're missionaries. And they're like, oh. And they just let us go on by. Like, you can go by. So being a missionary definitely has its perks. It's way fun.